Welcome to Community Producers on Shaw TV. I'm Andrina Kasholti. We're at the Comox Valley Airport. Our first story is a wonderful profile on Wes Seeley. My goodness, he's gone from being a logger for 43 years to now being an artist. But he's still using wood. He's still our go-to guy for cedar.
I think it's a shame when there's too many rules put on them. You got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. I think definitely stifles the artist's creativity, because once you start putting boundaries around someone, then where do you go? I've been working on the water for 42, 43 years, I guess, and nature's always been around me, especially eagles, and I love eagles. They're my favorite bird, favorite predator. And about 5 years ago, I thought, you know what? I love woodwork so much, I want to combine the two, the eagle and the woodwork, and just see what I can do with it. And 5 years later, I'm building these. Probably make 4 more cuts, and it's quite noisy, you can hear, without earplugs and stuff. And then, once I get 3 or 4 pieces, then you're able to stagger them a little bit, you know, because they work like this. You can stagger them on that block, and then you can make your own design, how you want the feathers to look at the end of the wing. The cedar that we have in BC is the best. It's easier on my blades, it's a soft wood. What I want to do is, see these knots? There's every feather that I cut out of a block of wood has a slice of this knot in it. So, and that's what I want to incorporate in my work. I want to be known for that kind of work. So if somebody sees my piece in a museum or somewhere, and they see all these knots, 9 times out of 10, they'll know it's me.
Signature.
That's right, kind of a signature kind of thing to do. The bench was a really awesome surprise. I knew Bonnie, and she's since gone now. So the management at Co-op got all the patrons together. Unbeknownst to me, this was a real surprise. And they came to me and they say, Wes, would you be interested in building a memorial bench for Bonnie? And I said, absolutely. I've never built one before, but let's do it. So they commissioned me to do it, and it's sitting up there now. Bonnie was an amazing lady, and she loved eagles. She was all about eagles. So just, you know, I'm not really a religious man, but I'm hoping that she's looking down on that and smiling, you know. You know, I'm really lucky. I don't have a lot of stress in my life, you know, so any issues at all, I can come in the shop and, you know, spend 10 hours in here and I'm happy as a clam, you know.
Best stress buster.
Totally, yeah, it really is. So then you know, I'm teaching myself new things. You know, getting back to the bench again, I was a little bit concerned, because I've never, like I say, never done that before. So you had to retrain some neurons to make it work, you know.
But now you've done it?
Yeah, I'm ready for the next one.
Our next story is produced by community producer Sue Vince of the Comox Valley Cycling Coalition. And she is profiling Greg Strong, and he's going to tell us a little bit about cycling. Opportunities if you're a new cycler, or opportunities if you're a more advanced cycler. I think it's very exciting.
After an interval, I found I just got itchy feet and started doing a lot of cycling. Eventually started heading to the north here, heading all through Vancouver Island and heading through the wider world. But I want to bring people to Vancouver Island. It's a pastime that I think has so much potential. My name is Greg Strong, and for long years now I've been passionate about cycling. I spent quite a number of years on the North Shore in North Vancouver as a member of the Cycling Advisory Committee. I also managed a team that used to compile all BC's road safety data and put it together, and I still have an awful lot of interest in road safety and cycling. I see cycling as a net good for our society.
Greg has a bundle of thoughts and ideas to share at the Comox Valley Cycling Coalition's AGM. His passion is to inspire others to explore their world on their bicycle.
There is a website on Backroads Bike Touring that the presentation is going to be very loosely based around. This website is intended just to be an information resource for people who are looking into maybe coming to this neck of the woods for cycle touring. There's no business angle to it, but you'll find lots of info on what to think about if you're getting started cycling, where you can go, possible rides, where you can camp, and just a host of other things.
Bike Touring with Greg covers a spectrum from easier accessible routes to the more remote back roads of Vancouver Island. So we asked Greg for 5 reasons our membership and the general public will want to attend his presentation.
If you're interested in cycle touring, or you want to perhaps put your foot in the water and try it out, there'll be lots of information, ideas, and discussions for you. Even if you're not a cycle tourist, the presentation is going to get into some far-flung corners of Vancouver Island that you may never have given thought to. I'll be recommending a whole bunch of favorite rides and favorite camping options for people. There's going to be some fine local photography from Vancouver Island, and finally, you're going to have a chance to get into a whole haul of Comox Valley cyclists, and what could be better.
We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more stories from community producers. Welcome back from break. I'm Andrina Kosciolti for Community Producers, and we're here at the Comox Valley Airport. And there's books here. You can do some shopping, get books, get magazines, get newspapers. Or you could go to the Campbell River Library. That's our next story, 5 dynamic facts that you may not know.
I'm the Children and Youth Librarian at the Campbell River branch, and here are 5 things you might not know about your local library. Number 1, did you know that the value of a Campbell River library card is worth over $1,000, and it only goes up in value the more that you use it? Number 2, going on vacation and want to read a book but worried about all those pesky baggage fees? Then download our app Libby for access to thousands of ebooks and audiobooks. You can even come into the library for help with setting it up. Number 3, can't find what you're looking for at your branch? We can send it from one of our 38 other branches right to your branch. Number 4, think the Children and Youth Librarian is only in it for all the fun, singing, and games? Well, that definitely is a highlight of the job. I also act as a literacy liaison and am available to come into schools for literacy promotion, or you can even bring your class to the library. Number 5, heard of a really good book with a blue cover and can't quite remember anything else about it? Come to the library and book a one-on-one session with a librarian for e-support, research help, and finally finding that book you can't quite put your finger on.
I'm here at the Comox Valley Airport. I have had a chance to talk with Fred Bigelow, the manager of the airport, and he also comes from a military background, so he's going to tell us a little bit about the Comox Valley Airport. Thank you for hosting us today, and can you tell us what makes us unique here at the Comox Valley Airport?
The thing I'm so proud about here in Comox is you consider communities across the country with 65,000 people like we have in the Comox Valley. I dare you to find another one that has the air service that we have here. When you consider, on top of the service to the major hubs, we've got non-stop service in the wintertime to Port of Vallarta. There's nowhere else in Canada you're going to see this, and why? It's because we've got this aerodrome, 19-wing Comox, that's provided for us by the Royal Canadian Air Force, and we take advantage of that in this community. It's super, the airlines love it. We certainly like it, and the staff takes advantage of what we have to offer here at the Comox Valley Airport.
Judy Murakami is our community producer, introducing us to the Spool on 6th Street in Courtenay. And we're gonna meet Nicole Bertram, the owner and the expert behind the sewing potential at the Spool.
They're a Japanese blade, which tend to be like a little bit sharper. And you want to find ones that have that angle where there's like the little tilt at the top so that it can kind of rock forward.
If you've ever thought you don't know how to sew, you'd like to learn, or you thought, oh, I'd love to sew again, but I don't have a sewing machine, you can come to the Spool Sewing Studio here on 6th Street. Nicole is the young entrepreneur who started this business.
The whole reason I started this business was how many people I knew who would say like, well, I've got a machine, but it's been hiding in my closet for like 5 years because I can sew, but I can't fill a bobbin. Or, you know, just I can get it started, but there's a problem, I'm just stuck, I don't know where to go. And so I started sewing with friends, just teaching them. And then this kind of grew out of being a home-based business to a downtown business pretty organically.
Once you come to class, you'll get all of your materials, your equipment, your cutting implements, and you'll learn how to sew. You can make rope bowls, you can make t-shirts, you can make clothes. The sky's the limit.
We also have classes for men, so we have bros who sew. We just did a session where they made t-shirts. And they came, some of them had already done some sewing with me, some of them were brand new. And so it's really trying to be inclusive. So we don't want it to feel like it's just a traditionally female space. We want it to be open to everybody. So we try to make a range of classes that makes it interesting for everyone. I usually like to cut my notches outwards. They're usually illustrated as being an inward triangle, so you would like cut them out. But with knits in particular, you can get a run, sort of like a run in your stockings. So I always like to cut mine out and then just trim them away after. A lot of people will come and start with our foundations class, and in that one you really learn how a machine works. So it's not just like sit down and use the machine, you really learn the principles so that you can troubleshoot on any machine. So you can go home and use your 30-year-old vintage machine and troubleshoot when there's problems. So foundations is a really great one for that, and they learn zippers and pillowcases, rope bowls, buttonholes, all in 4 weeks. From there, a lot of people will go into making garments. That's sort of a bigger range of classes for us, is garment making classes. So we have leggings, t-shirts, like sewing with stretchy fabrics, which can be really intimidating. And then we do some beginner quilting classes. And yeah, so people kind of learn how to follow a pattern, how to cut fabric really accurately. And also it's just always really fun. For parties, people will come and just not have as much principles behind the machines explained to them, but they just get to come in, make a project and go, and that's a really fun time.
For more information, you can go to thespoolstudio.com on the website or go to Facebook. From downtown Courtenay, this is Judy Murakami for Shaw TV.
Kate Brown is our community producer on the next story about art at the airport. Very exciting stuff. Enjoy.
People arrive at Waikiki, get the first impression of the Comox Valley, and what better way than art by local artists. Comox Valley Arts Council has cooperated with the airport to put on an excellent exhibit showing the essence and the spirit of Vancouver Island.
Well, we're just so very proud of the art that's being shown on our walls. You know, when a passenger walks off that aircraft and they come in from Edmonton or from Calgary, especially in the wintertime, make no mistake about it, you've arrived on the West Coast, you've arrived on Vancouver Island. I mean, my sister, who's an artist, will give me a hard time for picking the art to match the furniture. But I'll say, as a layperson, not as an artist myself, we have a West Coast contemporary building. We're blessed with this terminal facility. It's a lovely West Coast feeling kind of place, and the artwork just brings that on in spades. And so typically, working with the folks in town to bring this kind of artwork out, you're stepping off a plane on Vancouver Island. You're not in Calgary anymore. You're not in Toronto. You're not coming in from Europe. And if you look around me, especially the artwork that really shows the natural beauty of this valley that we live in, I just think it's just a marriage made in heaven when we combine this artwork with this building and the spirit that's in this building. You know, we're small. And we know each other and we work together every day, and it's a very, very pleasant place to work. And we kind of hope our passengers will feel that. So when you blend the sort of the emotions and the spirit of the staff who work here with the artwork, with the architecture, guess what? You've arrived on Vancouver Island when you step off that aircraft. You know it.
How does your art welcome people to the Comox Valley?
Well, one of the things people really enjoy when they come to the West Coast is beach walking, beach combing. And I also love that. So my representation is an ensemblage piece, which I put together from bits and pieces of things that I've collected along the way, and put together to make a three-dimensional assemblage piece, which is more like a sculpture. And I think that welcomes people to do the same, you know, to walk along the beach, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the walk, the water, the sounds.
You moved to the Comox Valley recently, so you have new impressions of the Comox Valley.
Yes, yeah, I've been here about 3 years now, so it's a beautiful place. Like, coming from the prairies, it's totally different, of course. We've got all the water that we have here and the big trees. I love the trees.
So there was a lot to inspire you when you got here?
Yes, and I knew what it was like before I got here. I mean, I visited before and wanted to live here for probably since I was about 8 years old, actually, when the first time I visited out here. But yeah, it's been great.
The environment is front of mind for everyone, and this show also captures that awareness and hopefully twigs consciousness for visitors that our environment is very precious and it belongs to everyone, the people who live here and the visitors. And I think the artists conveyed that without any direction from the Arts Council. If you take time to look at the pieces, I'm hoping, and I do think, that that's an impression people get.
We had a number of selections. We had a very, very good quality this year. We felt the submissions were incredibly strong. So the jury selection isn't easy, but it's very interesting. And being the person that is not artistic myself, I found it very, very enjoyable to sit with people who are artistic and get their side of things. And then I was able to also say, but this is what I like. This is what people are going to see when they come into the airport. And it's nature, it's warm, it's welcoming, it's we're inviting people into a home, basically.
Community art is a great way to welcome people to the Comox Valley here at the airport. Come and see it yourself. In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown.
Sandra Parrish is going to introduce us to the Campbell River Museum and some of the cool things that they're profiling, such as the history of fisheries in Campbell River.
As you step into our commercial fishing exhibits, you're immediately transported to the waterfront. The creaky floorboards, the whitewashed walls, were all designed to give a sense of an old cannery building. Some of the topics that we cover in this space is the early canning industry and the commercial fisheries, the gill netting, the troll fishing, and the seining. There are 5 species of salmon that inhabit our water, but it was the sockeye that was the targeted or preferred species that resulted in the fishery that we have today. It was preferred for several reasons, specifically for the British market. Its oily texture, bright color, and it's remained quite firm when it went through the canning process. So at one time, our coast was dotted by a number of canneries that were located very close to the fishing grounds. Gill netters were the initial methods. Gill net boats were small wooden rowboats powered either by oar or by sail, and you would pull the line in by hand. Initially, the fishers were predominantly First Nations, and it was only a little bit later on as the industry progressed that there was European Canadians and later on Japanese fishermen who joined the fishing fleet. The other early type of fishery was trolling, or its origins came from hand lining. We have on display an example of an early hand liner boat. You can see the gear is very minimal, bit of line, a few lures, and some oars, and that was how many people made their living. In particular, this style of fishery was pretty predominant in the Depression era, and at Cape Mudge we're known as having a very large hand lining camp where they mostly out-of-work men lived on the beach and then spent their time fishing. Seining was really the type of fishery that took over. Initially, seines were cast from the beach and then pulled in, but then as motorized boats came into play, the larger seine boats came into use. There were a number of canneries up and down our coast, but the one that's closest to Campbell River, of course, is the cannery at Quathiaski Cove. We have a number of artifacts that relate to this cannery and specifically to the cannery owner. W.E. Anderson and his family and later his grandchildren would spend much of their year living in the cove and managing the cannery. One of my favorite things in this particular case is a small wooden sailboat that actually was made by the cannery's boatsmith, a Japanese boat builder named Atagi, as a gift for one of W.E. Anderson's grandsons.
Thank you very much to Fred and Maxine of the Comox Valley Airport. And thank you for watching The Community Producers on Shaw TV. I'm Andrina Kuschulte. See you next time.